All right, today we're going to go over open burning policies and procedures. There's been a little bit of confusion. Well, not really confusion, but there's been some discussion about what direction we give to the field and how clear that direction is. So, what we wanted to do is we wanted to sit down and get council's input, and we were able to do that by drafting how we would enforce that, sending that out to all the council members and asking if any of them had any problems with it. And none of them have given us any problems that they want. So we've got a pretty clear idea of where we want to go with enforcement of open burning in the county and what the political will is. So the idea of today's discussion is to cover that a little bit with you and make sure you understand the intent of what we're doing and where we're going. The first thing you have to understand is there are different legal authorities that cover open burning. All of these kind of complement each other and go hand in hand in different areas of regulating open burning. And that the first one is the South Carolina Prescribed Fire Act in the South Carolina Code, and that one is enforced by South Carolina Forestry Division. South Carolina Forestry Division are the main agency in the state, for all the open burning and all of those kind of issues. The next one is DHEC, Pollution Control Regulations and Standards, and that's enforced by DHEC. The ones that really affect us and Horry County Fire Rescue are the next few ones, and that's the Horry County Code Section 21 to 451 outdoor burning, and that's enforced by us. And what that does is it makes all open fires within 200 foot of a platted major residential subdivision in the county prohibited on red flag days, and that's any red flag day declared by the Forestry Commission. And it also gives the county administrator, on the recommendation of the fire chief, the authority to prohibit open burning countywide under special conditions. And those special conditions can be anything from when there is a red flag day to a day that we're particularly busy and we want to cut down the risk for us, days that we don't have enough staffing and we need to manage risk, things like that on it. Now, what is a platted major residential subdivision? That's basically any subdivision that had to go through the subdivision process with 10 homes or more. There are some with more than 10 homes that predate the subdivision ordinance, and those, of course, have the ability to burn openly without any regulation unless we declare a countywide open burning. Then, of course, there's the International Fire Code, Section 3, and that's been adopted by the county in its entirety, the whole fire code, and included in the county code. That's enforced by us, certain sections of it, and it's also enforced by the fire inspector, the building inspector's office, and other things that they do with fire inspections. The last thing that is the area of authority for us to enforce is the Horry County Code Section 5-4. And what that does is it prohibits fires, open fires, even gas open fires in a gas grill or cooker on any public beach access, street adjacent to any beach where the street end is adjacent to any beach, or any government land immediately adjacent to the beach at any time. That section is also enforced by us, and that would be one that we would be called for if there is such an open burning in that. Of course, Beach Patrol may also enforce that section of the code in our absence. So we have plenty of authority to enforce the code. The question is, how do we enforce it? Because there's a lot of room for interpretation in this, because we have the authority to extinguish open burning that's deemed hazardous or is creating obnoxious odors and smoke. So what in the world does hazardous and obnoxious odors or smoke mean? And that's the idea of this policy, this procedure for you, is to give you, the company officer, the information that they need to make those kind of determinations and to make sure we do it consistently across that. So The first thing is that the fire code does require a permit for open burning, and for us, we accept the state Department of Forestry permit. That means that the citizen doesn't have to do anything special here for a local permit or to meet any local requirements. If they call the Department of Forestry and they conduct the open burn under the requirements of the Prescribed Fire Act, then they're good to go, and they don't need anything special from us. The next part of that is when do you consider them hazardous, and order that they be extinguished or extinguish them, and that's if any of these following conditions are met. And any is the operable word here. Any means one or more. It doesn't mean they have to all be present. So this is what you ought to consider when you're on the scene. The first one is if a fire is less than 50 foot from a structure or less than 15 foot from a structure, if it's in a container such as a burn barrel. And that's pretty clear. You don't have to measure it out. If it just looks 50 foot away, then they're good to go. If it's clear to the officer in charge that there is a demonstrable danger of the fire extending beyond the property lines of the person conducting the burn, you can consider it hazardous and you can put it out. If no one is attending the fire, you can consider it hazardous and put the fire out. If there's no method of control or extinguishment available. And this was a little bit different because there are lots of different ways to control or extinguish the fire. So this can be anything from a garden hose to a fire extinguisher to a forestry plow that can cut lines around the fire. Out on the farms, it can be a tractor, backhoe, front end loader, anything that they can move dirt, cut a line in the fire to control it, and basically anything they can do to make sure the fire doesn't get out of hand. And if they've got that equipment in place, then they're good to go. If they don't, and you think that the fire is going to move beyond where they have it, you can extinguish it or order it to be extinguished. The other thing is last thing that it makes it hazardous is if the administrator and the fire chief have put in place a burn ban for that day due to atmospheric conditions or local circumstances, then we have the authority that we need to extinguish or. Now we get into the one that's a little bit more difficult, and that is obnoxious smoke or odor production. And we're firefighters, we kind of like smoke, so obnoxious is a tough word for us to decide what that is. So it's also a pretty open word, because what's obnoxious to one person can be thoroughly tolerable to another person. So we have to have some kind of standard that we're going to apply for that. And this one, the operative word, is that if all of the conditions are met, there have to be 4 things in place for you to consider smoke to be obnoxious and to extinguish a fire or order the person to extinguish their fire. The first thing you have to have is, one, a citizen has to have complained about the open burn. We're not going out of here looking for fires and then saying, oh, that smoke's obnoxious, you got to put the fire out. Somebody has to have called and complained that they can't breathe or that smoke is bothering them. The second thing is the location of that person who's complaining has to be within 100 foot of the fire. That means, the residents you can also take to mean if it's a place of business, a nursing home, things like that. But in short, the fire's got to be pretty close to the person complaining. You can't have somebody call in because there's a fire in Georgia and it's coming across the line because of the smoke and saying that the smoke is obnoxious to them. The next thing that you have to do is the wind has to be blowing in the direction of the complainant. Residents, and it has to be visible. It can't just be oh, I smell that, that's a whiff. You can't go on something that arbitrary to be taking the right of the people to burn away under the authority that we have. And the last one that has to be in place is the smoke's got to be banked down to 6 foot or lower above the ground. That means that heavy smoke has to be there. Now, what in the world's heavy smoke? Heavy smoke is just what y'all know heavy smoke is. Heavy smoke is any smoke that you would have to wear an air pack for. It's got to be at head level or lower, down where the people are. It just can't be going above them. Anything that doesn't meet all of those 4 things together is going to be considered a air pollution complaint, and all we're going to do is simply refer it to DHEC. Now, the last thing that you need to understand about open burning enforcement is that generally there are some fires that we just don't mess with that are not covered under the authorities that we have. And that is recreational cooking or warming fires, campfires, uh, outdoor cooking to to cook a pig, or a fire that's used for warming at hunt clubs, construction sites, those kind of things. We don't have any authority to mess with those. Now that's different than a grill on a balcony or a grill on the beach, because we do have authority for those, but it is generally something we want to stay away from. Now bonfires are a little bit different. Bonfires are large fires for either recreational purposes, and they're defined to be bigger than 5 foot wide and 3 foot tall. And under those, we can regulate them. Now, the trick here is you have to be careful with bonfires, because there are constitutional protections. If the fire is ritual fire or used in the practice of a religion, then the people have certain constitutional rights to practice that religion. So that's one of those fires you may want to look and get a little further direction before you take action on. If the fires don't meet the standards we just talked about, then they're totally legal, and our action is going to be to simply advise the complainant and the person burning that we received the complaint and that the fire is legal, and let them go about their day. If it is hazardous, or if it does create obnoxious smoke by creating all of those 4 items we talked about before, the action that you'll take is you're going to advise the citizen that's burning that it is illegal because of that, and you're going to request that they extinguish the fire. When you do that, offer to assist them. We've got a lot better ways most of the time, can get it out quickly and can help them a lot. The last thing is, if they say no, that they won't do that, then we're going to extinguish the fire, and we're going to use the assistance of law enforcement if we're necessary. Now, the county code does allow for a civil penalty to be imposed if the officer who responds deems, a police officer deems that it's something he wants to do. He does have that authority to do that, and we do have clear authority to put the fire out on the issue. The last thing that we want to hit for this, to make sure everybody understands that, is most open burns are not emergencies, and they should be treated like that. That means that if it comes in as just an open burn, if the information you get leads you to believe that this is just a smoke investigation and nothing big's going on, you do have the authority, and you should respond under non-emergency conditions. The thing about this, though, is if you have any doubt in your mind, then go ahead and respond under emergency conditions, so that we err on the side of caution, and we err on the side of making sure that we take care of people. I appreciate y'all's attention today. I hope this helps you, and you'll be seeing more of these kind of things in the future.